technology in flight being displayed, and that's what's going to be happening at Wings Over North Georgia. But today, I'm very excited because we have Mike Wiskus on the line, who's actually going to be at Wings Over North Georgia. Mike, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. It's great.
Mike, give me a brief explanation of what you do and who you are at Wings Over North Georgia.
Well, who I am is just a guy who loves aviation.
Right.
Flying my entire life. I mean, it's been the greatest career. I can't think of any boring time that I've ever had doing this. On the air show side, for 20 years now, I've been taking airplanes and tumbling them end over end. Cutting ribbons at 15 feet off the ground upside down, racing jet cars. Just kind of the average day, 9 to 5 job that normally would take.
If that's an average,
love what I do.
If that's an average job, then I think I'm in the wrong business.
I love what I do. Yeah, we make a lot of noise, kick out a lot of smoke, and we travel all over the United States and Canada. In fact, we just finished up in Reno, Nevada. We were in Sacramento, California. Just did the air show in San Francisco. It's Fleet Week. We're heading down to Huntington Beach, and then we're heading all the way over to Rome, Georgia, and we're going to have a great show. I'm racing a jet car there. Some hard aerobatics, aggressive aerobatics. We take this airplane and we make it do things that people look at and they go, wait a minute, planes aren't supposed to do that. And that's the whole gift of this. I mean, that's what I love doing, is putting that airplane in situations that people go, how did that happen? How can he make that happen? I love that.
That's amazing. So what kind of airplanes are you going to be flying this week here, or rather in October, later on in October?
Well, my plane, it was originally built in 1999 by the factory, called it Pitts, P-I-T-T-S, Pitts Aircraft. But I bought it wrecked off of eBay in 99. Funny. I bought it wrecked off of eBay. I rebuilt that airplane, redesigned it the way that I wanted it, and I've been flying it now. I got it back flying in 2002, and it's the same airplane. I keep rebuilding it every year. But I've had it all over the world. I was on the United States aerobatic team with it. And but this relationship that I have with this airplane sounds funny, but I mean, you get to know all the aspects of it. You know every shudder, every feel on the rudder, every kick on the pedals. You feel everything. You know this airplane. I've got a relationship with it. You actually kind of strap into it and become one with this airplane, and you start kicking out your personality through it. So yeah, this is a airplane that I have a really close relationship with, understand, and I just love flying this airplane.
And I've noticed before too, airplane guys are a lot like car guys, but usually with a lot more money dumped into their vehicle of choice. But it's just amazing to me how you can make these airplanes, like you say, do things that you never would expect an airplane could even do. These intense aerobatics. How do you train yourself to do that?
Well, you start out, it is practice. There's no question about that. You start out higher, on a higher altitude. The maneuvers are difficult in themselves by practicing them over and over again, but that's not the dangerous part of it. The dangerous part of it is after you do the maneuver, it's the recovery from the maneuver. We try to do the maneuvers at about 1,000 feet, 800 to 1,000 feet off the ground where we're tumbling the airplane. Keep in mind that when you tumble an airplane at 800 to 1,000 feet off the ground, the airplane is totally out of control. Every time you do it, you've lost control of this airplane. So you have 800 feet to recover, get up enough speed to build up to go into the next maneuver. And that's what I love about this. You've got to be creative. You've got to be fast. You got to think about what this airplane is going to do, and to be able to get it out of that lost control, back into control, pointed back down straight down to the ground, build up enough speed to get into the next maneuver that requires you to pull vertical, spiral up, tumble, and do the same thing at 800 to 1,000 feet off the ground. So yeah, you're constantly thinking, you're constantly working all the controls, you're monitoring the engine, you're monitoring how close you are to the crowd. There's a certain distance that you have to stay away from. And you're monitoring your health, because you're pulling 7 to 10 G's positive. That's 7 to 10 times your weight, your body weight, shoving you in a seat. Or if you're upside down and you're pushing out negative, that's 7 to 10 times that airplane's trying to kick you out that cockpit. And and you're only being held in by seatbelts. So, I weigh 172 pounds. So take 7 times 172. That gives you an idea what you're up against.
Well, now I feel bad because I weigh about 180, and I thought I was pretty normal, but there goes that.
Yeah, well, you take 180, you multiply it by 7, 1,260 pounds. That's what's being forced into the seat or being pushed out of the seat against the seatbelts.
And people,
grit your teeth and hang on.
Right. People probably don't think about that aspect of acrobatic flying too, especially when you're on the ground. You're thinking more about the airplane, but there is a physical aspect to it too. You have to be physically fit to be able to pull that off, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there are certain things you do to try to maintain your consciousness. Yeah, actually, if you don't do these things, you will go unconscious. And of course, the result of that is not good after that point. So, they call it, on the positive side, they call it the hick maneuver, where you're constantly trying to hick and tighten your stomach and tighten your pelvic area. And then on the outside, you're also trying to tighten up the back of your legs, your muscles, preventing the blood to rush from your head and your chest area down to your legs. Of course, when you're upside down, you have to do the same thing, and to prevent all that blood to be shoved up into your head and your brain, both of which do cause a situation where you can become unconscious. So it comes to the point where it's a lot of practice. A lot of these maneuvers and what you do with your body happens automatically. You don't even think about it anymore. When you roll upside down and you're pushing out 7 Gs to do an outside loop, automatically you're tightening your neck muscles to prevent the blood to rush up into your head. And people go, well, why do you do this? This sounds so terrible. No, it's such a challenging sport. It's so incredible to work on and make these things work all together. I guess that's one of the things I love about it.
That's incredible. We're talking with Mike Wiskus, who's going to be flying at Wings Over North Georgia. That's going on October the 29th to the 30th. Ticket booths open at 8 o'clock each of those days. Gates open at 9 o'clock a.m. Opening ceremonies start at 11:30. So, Mike, what days are you going to be flying there?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What days are you going to be flying there?
I'm flying every day.
Every day
I'm there, and I'll be performing probably 3 times each day. I bring we've got the jump team that's coming in. Going to be racing the jet car, and of course, I'm going to be having my full performance with an inverted ribbon cut. We'll be drawing some folks from the crowds as volunteers to hold on to the poles to keep that ribbon tight when I come down at 15 feet off the ground, roll upside down and cut those ribbons. They're sitting 60 feet apart with poles holding that ribbon tight, so I can cut that ribbon. So, 3 times a day and doing what I love to do. How can you beat that?
You can't. We kind of do that around here, just a little bit of a different feel, but we all love what we do in radio too. So I guess I can relate to that a little bit too. The ribbon cuts.
How many G's do you take?
About 1.
Oh no! How many times do you say G's each day? There you go.
Zillions. I can't even count. That ribbon cut though, that sounds like you've had a few close calls with that too. I mean, in training and everything, that sounds a little bit dangerous, don't you think?
Again, you're in your car and you're pulling into your garage. I know it doesn't sound like the same thing, but you've done it a number of times. You know exactly how far to pull ahead before you bump into the wall. Same car that you've been doing it for years and years and years. You're not bumping into the wall anymore. You know exactly when you look off to the side where to stop that mirror on the wall or whatever reference you're using. I've got references and things that I use. There's a white dotted line that goes down that center of that runway, and that's where the center of that ribbon is. So I initially start out, roll upside down, I come down to about 15 feet following that white line, and now I'm looking down the runway, 2,000 feet looking for the ribbon, and that center ribbon that's marked with yellow. The ribbon itself is red, the center is marked with yellow, and I'm lining up to that. We have wind corrections off of each side that you have to take in consideration, but it's practice, practice, practice. So there's just a lot of things that we've prepared for. It sounds like it's crazy, risky. I guess if you haven't done it before, it gets to be crazy risky. But, we're looking at 20 years here doing this stuff, and it's just a part of what I do in life.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair enough analogy too with the garage. I never really thought about it that way. I've always assumed that there was an immense amount of practice that went into it. So it's good to it's good to both hear that and let the listener know about that. That it's a much safer environment than perhaps the layman might think too.
Yeah. And, when I first started out on this on the competition side, I actually logged in one summer 200 hours of practice for the competition side. That all, so that gives you an idea how much we actually put into this, how much time we put into it, and how important it is for us to keep this safe. I certainly don't want anything to happen out there to where it throws anybody in jeopardy. But more than that, I don't want anything to happen, period, because I want people to come out of this to go, wow, that's the coolest thing I ever saw. Man, I'd like to learn how to fly. Not necessarily upside down, but I'd like to learn how to fly. I want this to encourage people, especially young kids, people who are growing up trying to decide what they want to do in life. And I guess, there's still 40-year-olds out there that are trying to do that. But find a passion that you love. And that's what this has been for me. I started when I was 15 years old at an airport, washing airplanes and cleaning out hangars. And even then, it wasn't work. I was around airplanes. And this is how it's been for me. Now, I hate to say it, but I'm in my 50s, doing what I love to do. I've been doing this for so long, and it's never boring. I don't dread getting up to go to work in the morning. This has been a pretty cool ride.
You can't beat that. You can't beat a career where you're in pretty much literally in love with what you're doing and getting paid to do it too. That helps out a little bit too. We're talking with Mike Wiskus, who's going to be flying every day, apparently, wings over North Georgia, which is happening from October the 29th to the 30th. Gates open at 8 o'clock each day, and opening ceremony starts at 11:30. So definitely be there to see Mike fly around and do insane maneuvers that put a lot of effort into making those work out. Tell me about that jet car, Mike. You've intrigued me. I'm a bit of a jet enthusiast. I'd like to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Bill Brock has put together a program with that jet car, and we race occasionally throughout the United States and Canada, and we've got a little program that we put together. But yeah, I race him upside down. I'll be upside down at 15 feet off the ground. He'll be hitting almost 400 miles an hour, trying to catch up to me and pass me because, of course, I always cheat. I pass him. I don't start at a dead stop. I come flying by him, and then he hits the button, and that thing just goes. So if you haven't ever seen anything like that before, I mean, the fire and the flame that comes out of the back of that thing is outrageous. And going by me or trying to go by me at 400 miles an hour. I won the last race. That was good. That was in Sacramento. But he beat me twice in Reno. So, we got a little rivalry going here. He's out on my runway. This is an airport. This isn't the highway. What's he doing here? So, I mean, we have a little rivalry that we have, and it's kind of fun.
That's your territory. What's he doing encroaching on your turf?
Exactly. He's a land lover. I mean, come on.
What's the deal with that?
What's he doing? Exactly. But I encourage anybody, too, that if you come to the show, please come up and meet me. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to share what I do and my passion. And if you've got questions or you want to talk, I'll spend time with you. I love talking to people. So this is a fun business. This is a fun event. You're not closed off. You're not fenced off. We can walk right up to you and shake your hand and talk to each other like crazy. I love that stuff. People. I love interacting with people at these shows. It's great.
It's a common passion that you can share with a lot of other people too. Even people who don't fly are just intrigued by the idea of people flying. That's one of those human wants, is to be able to fly. So talking to someone who does that and loves doing it and does it probably every day, that's a unique experience in and of itself. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and so many people think that it's so far away from them to be able to do, and it just certainly is not. To get your private pilot's license is about as much as it costs to go on a good vacation. For $5,000 or $4,000 and about 3 months worth of training, the next thing you know, you're a private pilot. You can go out and rent an airplane and not necessarily fly upside down at 15 feet to cut a ribbon, but you certainly can take off and fly from point A to point B, and the excitement and I mean, to say that you're able to jump in an airplane and fly somewhere yourself as a pilot, what an accomplishment. And it's such a great feeling, but it's not like anybody thinks. It's not that difficult. You go through phases of testing and stuff like that, but and listen, if I can do it, you can do it. You really can.
That's a really encouraging thing, especially for kids to hear, because there does seem to be, especially for a younger kid, you think about the barrier, right? You think about the barrier between me and doing what the grown-ups do. But if you get into it at a younger age, maybe talk to your parents a little bit, yeah, it could happen for you too.
Absolutely. The other thing too is everybody says, well, it costs so much. Number one, where there's a will, there's a way. But go out to the airport. There are people out at the airport out there that would wrap their arms and legs around you to bring you in, get you introduced to aviation. They die to be able to show you this stuff and to be able to share their own airplanes and share their experience. I'm an Iowa farm boy. I live in Minnesota now, but I'm an Iowa farm boy. And I just couldn't take it. I grew up next to an airport, kept watching these airplanes take off and land. And I finally, I think I was 14, and I walked across the field and I told the guy there that had the operation, I said, I want to learn to fly. He asked me, he said, well, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 14. Well, we can't really start anything until you're 15. So 2 months later, I was still 14. I came back and I said I was 15. I mean, like I said, I went after it. I wanted this so bad, and I started flying lessons and started going through this stuff and trading my hours of working for him for flying lessons. And I ended up, winning much more in terms of cost than he did, because all the free flights and all the different things I got riding with other people at the airport that had airplanes. You got to go there. You got to go to the airport. You got to get to know people. You want to learn how to fly? Get out to the airport. Start talking to people. Ask questions. Start meeting people. And surround yourself with those people that have that passion also. You won't believe how they'll wrap their arm around you and bring you along into this industry. It's crazy.
I've heard it said before that the only thing that separates an individual from a great opportunity is just asking a question. And I've experienced that myself. That's how I got into radio. Just ask, hey, can I intern here? And that's how I ended up where I am. So obviously it works for everybody in any field.
It really does. Yes, it does. There are people out there that have their passions. In your industry, there were people that had the passion to be on radio, and what they do. We don't do this on our own. There's always somebody that opens the door for us or gives us an opportunity.
Right.
You just have to be willing to walk up to that door and knock. That's all you got to do. Get up there, walk up to the door, knock. They'll open the door and they'll bring you in. And that's how this is how it worked for me. And I can't tell you how many people I know that it's worked for that way.
Mike Wiskus is going to be flying at Wings Over North Georgia. It starts October the 29th, ends on October the 30th. So just before Halloween, make sure you get out there in Rome, Georgia. Ticket booths open at 8 o'clock a.m. every day. Gates open at 9. A opening ceremony for the show will start at 11:30. Mike Wiskus, thank you so much for joining me here on Binary on Hot News Talk Radio.
Man, it's my pleasure. Anytime you give me a holler, I love to talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
You bet. Bye now.
That was Mike Wiskus from Wings Over North Georgia. He's going to be flying here in October in Rome, Georgia. Make sure you get out there. We're going to be there too, by the way. Hot News Talk Radio will be there, and we'll get to talk to you. You want to come up to us and say some cool stuff? Hey, we're down with that. And Mike Wiskus, hopefully I'll get to talk to him there too. He seems like a really, really neat guy. I like to talk to him a little bit more. And you can too. Find him, track him down, see him fly upside down and cutting a ribbon. How nuts is that, right? That's crazy, man. I couldn't do that. And I'm glad that there's someone who can, so we can see it happen. Mike Wiskus, Wings Over North Georgia. Go to wingsovernorthgeorgia.com. That's Wings Over North Georgia. North Georgia is spelled out, by the way, .com. The show starts October the 29th at 8 o'clock a.m. is when you can get tickets. Gates open at 9. Opening ceremony starts at 11:30, and you can get there and see the Super Hornet. You can see Travis Tritt playing with a fireworks show Saturday evening at a concert there. The SOCOM Paracommandos are going to be there. Kent Peach will be there. Gary Rauer, Jim Tobel, and Scott Yoke. And, of course, the USAF Thunderbirds, the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, who actually I saw when I was a young kid, and they got me interested in airplanes when I was a little kid, and I can't wait to see them again. So that's Wings Over North Georgia. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, hotnewstalkradio.com. Get us on the TuneIn Radio app for your smartphone. Again, thank you, Mike Wiskus, for joining us here on Binary Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. Like us on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio.
blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis has the cash when you sell gold, silver, diamonds, rings, and jewelry. Sell Rick your precious metals today and lock in your price. Hey, Rick Davis will trade your cash for shiny, brilliant, and heavy gold. Gold cheaper now by $100 an ounce. Join the Rick Davis Silver Bonanza too. Price is so low, the Lone Ranger is bound to gallop in, Kimosabi.
Hey-ho, silver, away!
The markets are changing, so buy now. Cash, 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 and more cash for your silver and gold, gold, gold. Rick Davis, 5301 Brainerd Road. That's 5301 Brainerd Road. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Oh, and cash, cash, cash. You know where it is.
Hey-ho, silver, away!
We're at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Yes, sir. 2 orders of nachos with beef and beans, 2 beers. Chattanooga loves its Amigos restaurants, but the Amigos in Hickson has something extra. NASCAR, every race. How about a house wine? Really good. Big name beers, just tell Maria what you want. And here at Amigos, margaritas are popular, and it's only $3 all day. If you come here on a race day, Sunday, a Natty Light is only $2.25. Here at Amigos, just during NASCAR, Natty Light, $2.25. Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson. The happy hour is 3 to 9 today and every day. I'd say the atmosphere is festive. Look at that huge TV. It's like being amid the fans under a bright sun, but no gasoline fumes, no heat. Stay cool. Quench your thirst. Amigos between Staples and Hobby Lobby. Take the next table to mine. Enjoy the NASCAR race with friend or family here at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Okay, it started.
Drivers, start your engines.
Listen up, y'all. Ben Phillips, Home Rate Mortgage, 805-9100. I'm in the business of saving people money. And if you want to save money, pick that cell phone up right now, 805-9100. I received a call that I won't forget. The guy is a Chattanooga police officer who served our great country in the Air Force. A true American hero. Our hero is renting, which costs too much for a space too small. We helped him achieve the American dream. And the best part is this. He purchased a $180,000 home with zero down. His payment is $200 less than what his rent was. And now he has a safe place with more space to raise his family. It's easy, and you can do it too. It just takes 10 minutes and 1 phone call. 805-9100.
Turn a house into a
Whole body vibration really works for weight loss, pain relief, circulation, and building bone density. Go to Lily's as seen on TV and talk to Dottie at the Gun Barrel Road store and Robert at the 153 Hickson location. 10 minutes equals 1 hour walking. It really works.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. Shots rang out at the Mapco gas station on Rossville Boulevard. Police responded and gave chase, zooming down the highway. Eventually, the car stopped. A silver Hyundai Elantra stopped on the side of the road. One driver jumped out, ran away. He was eventually tackled and arrested. He was found to be DeKendrick Trammell, who's 22, a validated member of the Bounty Hunter Blood Gang. And Jubal Grundy, who's not in any gang, who's 26, was also arrested. Multiple charges have been pressed, including a charge of altering of a permanent number because a Taurus 9mm handgun was found inside the car that had the serial number scraped off. The 2 men are now in custody. A 131-car train derailed, 10 of its cars careening off the tracks at the Bailey Avenue Viaduct. CSX is on scene clearing up the wreckage. The reason for the derailment is still under investigation. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect lots of sunshine and pleasant weather out there through your afternoon highs back into the upper 70s to near 80 tonight. clear, not as cool, lows closer to 50. For Thursday, mostly sunny, highs of around 80. More clouds later Friday. Could see a shower or two late Friday night. Looking for your dream home? McBriar Realty can help. With decades of experience, they get big-time results with small-town values. Licensed for the tri-state area, check McBriarRealty.com for their complete listings. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
An interesting discovery has been made by the American Civil Liberties Union, which is an entity I'm not always in favor of. I'll put it that way. I'm not always in favor of the ACLU. They don't always do the best things ever. But, that's just my opinion about the ACLU. It does some good stuff, too. And the one good thing that's been discovered here is that the different social media networks, which we use very often, have been complicit and, in fact, have been aiding and abetting the selling of information to different governments. In this case, the Chicago state government, in order to sell this information to police agencies. Now, you might be saying, but I want there to be police who can monitor social media so they know when gang hideouts are and that kind of thing. And, that's fine. You can have a policeman whose job it is to sit on Facebook all day and read Facebook posts. And a lot of different police agencies actually do that, believe it or not. So that's a thing that does happen. But selling that information to police agencies seems a little bit like a violation of your privacy, and the police don't care. And Twitter and Facebook obviously don't care because they're making money off of it. But the ACLU on Tuesday outed Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, for feeding a Chicago-based company their user streams, which is a feed that was then sold to police agencies for surveillance purposes. After the disclosure was made, according to Ars Technica, the social media company said that they stopped their data firehouse to Chicago-based Geophidia, weird name. In a blog post, the ACLU said it uncovered the data feeds as part of a public records request campaign of California law enforcement agencies. Geophidia touts how it helped police track unrest during protests. In one document, Geophidia hailed its service because it paid for Twitter's fire hose and because it is the only social media monitoring tool to have a partnership with Instagram, which is a little bit odd when you come to think of it, because that means then that Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are conspiring to sell your information to other entities, which doesn't seem exactly ethical in the sense of, you being a private person who uses this particular service. If you're a private person using Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, you're probably not expecting that information to be sold to the police. In fact, never minding that, the police should not agree to buy that information. That's another factor. The police are obviously, in this case, kind of complicit in the illegal gathering of your information, because then it means that they are more than willing to take that information. They obviously are more than willing to take information that was most likely illegally taken from an individual. That seems to be a little bit, shady on the side of the police agencies in Chicago and California. But you expect that out of police agencies in Chicago and California. They're kind of known for being terrible. The LAPD is known for being one of the worst police agencies ever, basically. The NYPD is slightly better, but the LAPD is known worldwide for its abuses. So it's not surprising, and so is the Chicago Police Department for that matter. So it's not surprising that this would happen. It's just frustrating. Twitter tweeted, based on information in the ACLU's report, we are immediately suspending Geophidia's commercial access to Twitter data, which is all well and good, but, Twitter probably knew this was happening all the time. Nicole Ozer, an ACLU Civil Liberties Director in California, says the ACLU shouldn't have to tell Facebook or Twitter that what their own developers are doing. The companies need to enact strong public policies and robust auditing procedures to ensure their platforms aren't being used for discriminatory surveillance. But see, this is the thing about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any big company ever, basically. They don't really care about ethics until they get caught. That's how most of them operate. There's no care at all for ethics until someone outs them as doing something illegal, and then suddenly they're outraged and they're shocked to discover this is what their employees have been doing, or this is what a subcontractor of theirs has been doing. It's all a big show for the most part. It's all a big show because you have to know an entity as big as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, an entity as big as any one of those given companies has to know what's happening with their subcontractors. There's someone there who has to know who didn't say anything. So the people who run these companies really don't care about you or your privacy or ensuring that the police don't abuse that information. They don't care about that. They care about getting the money at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the 2-week period, when your paycheck is withheld. That's what they care about. It's not about, oh, well, I need to make sure all of my users are their privacy is protected by my giant corporation. They don't think about that because it's just not something they think about. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't sit all day in his apartment or his giant house in Beverly Hills worrying about your privacy. It's just not something he does. Neither did Steve Jobs. Neither does Tim Cook, as much as he likes to pose that he does. None of these people actually really care that much about your privacy. If they do on an individual level, they definitely don't on a corporate level. The ACLU said that after we reported our findings to the companies, Instagram cut off Geofedia's access to public records posts, and Facebook has cut its access to a topic-based feed of public user posts. Geofedia did not respond for comments, says it has more than 500 customers, including the Denver Police Department, signed a $30,000 annual deal with the company. The money came from the agency's confiscation fund. The department's intelligence agency's top brass wrote that it would allow cops to analyze and respond in real time to social media content from anywhere in the world. Wow. We worry about the surveillance state coming someday. That's something that everyone talks about. The surveillance state may be coming someday, here soon. The police state is on its way if we just don't enact these particular measures. If we just don't do these certain things, or we do allow these people to come into power, then we might have a police state. We might have a totalitarian state. Well, it's kind of too late, isn't it? Because we're talking about this stuff going on, and we're talking about, well, maybe someday it'll get worse. It's already bad, so why would we wait for it to get worse? That's like, in the middle of World War II, we're like, well, it's a good thing it's not an even bigger war than it already is. Well, that's, a nice sentiment to have, but you're already kind of in the middle of combat here. And that's what's happening with these different police agencies and with these different intelligence agencies. We're already in the middle of combat here. The Germans are shooting at us, and we're worried about maybe the Japanese will come tomorrow. But we got to worry about what we have right now, which is we have these intelligence agencies that are spying on us constantly, and we're just kind of okay with it because we tell ourselves, well, it's to stop those dang dirty terrorists from doing dang dirty terrorist things. We'll just tell ourselves that it's okay, but it's not. No matter what justification you may put upon yourself, think about this. Is it okay to root through someone's papers if you think they're a terrorist and you end up being wrong? Is it okay to do that? Now, you might say, well, no, but what if you're the one who's suspected to be a terrorist because you at one point Googled something that you shouldn't have? And I would say there's nothing you shouldn't Google, but there's, on some red flag, you got red flagged because you typed in something that's, how to build pressure cooker bombs, or how Yohar Sarnaev built a pressure cooker bomb, just because you were curious, and you end up on a red, blacklist, and an NSA officer decides to inspect your computer. You wouldn't be okay with that, but you'd say, well, I guess he's doing his job, and I might be a terrorist and not even know it. That sounds a little bit ridiculous. That's because it is. That's because that's what's happening every day, but that's the mentality people have. They're such bootlickers these days that they're just so okay with police doing pretty much anything because it's contrarian. It is a sense of contrarianism, because you have people who see a lot of the leftists going around saying that, there shouldn't be any sort of law enforcement ever, which, no sane person ever says, but there shouldn't be any law enforcement ever and all these kinds of things. So as a sort of a knee-jerk reaction to that, you have a new type of person who becomes so uber ultra pro cop that it's to the point of insanity as well. There are two extremes. You can be pro law enforcement without being anti-privacy. It does work. You can be pro a sheriff existing and arresting criminals while also being against the same sheriff using his powers to spy on you. That's okay. You can say, I don't want the sheriff to spy on me, but I do want him to arrest real criminals. That is something that is realistic and has been happening for the last, several hundred years. It's a recent occurrence that we have these sheriffs and these police officers and these police agencies overstepping their bounds in such a way, because the technology's there and it's so easy. Why wouldn't you take it? The temptation has leaked into a lot of our police agencies here in America. So now it's gotten to the point where some of these police agencies, I don't think here, but some of these police agencies in other cities are actively working against the citizens of these particular cities. And we tell ourselves a police state is coming at some point, sometime later on in some undetermined location, some undetermined time. It seems like it's already happened. You know, I've made the joke before. I'm a police state preterist. I don't think it's a prophecy of something that's going to happen later. It's something that's already happened probably 20, 30 years ago. The police state is already something which is in existence. The surveillance state is something which is already in existence. And we keep talking about, well, it's going to happen later. Oh, look at how bad things are going to be later on. Well, yeah, look at how bad things are right now. We're kind of living in a police state. And you say that and people just flip out and they're like, oh, you hate cops, don't you? Well, no, I don't. You know, I have friends who are cops. I've been pulled over by plenty of cops. I didn't hate them for it. They're doing whatever they do. I can't blame them because I agreed when I got a driver's license that I would be in submission to these different codes and regulations. I'm not angry at the policeman for enforcing these codes and regulations, which I agreed to be subject to when I got a driver's license. I'm not angry at the individual policeman. I'm angry at the machinery. Right? It's sort of a Rage Against the Machine, you might say, which is a decent band, although very leftist, and I don't like that. But no, it is that way. It is that way entirely because it's not a argument against the individual man. It's not ad hominem. It's ad machina, maybe. It's an argument ad machina because it's directed towards the machine. It's not directed towards the man. It has nothing to do with the individual policeman who's pulling you over for speeding. Although that is contributing to a problem, it's not the bigger problem. Although some would argue that it may be, and maybe it is, and I'm just not educated enough to recognize it. But it's such a huge, monstrous machine of a problem that we have and what we're faced with right now that you really can't take it down with just one policy. You can't really stop it with just passing one law or saying, well, police agencies now can't gather data in this specific way, because that's what they always do. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that whenever there's some sort of law that gets passed against, say, stingray devices where they're spying on people's cell phones, you know, oh, it's to stop criminals. Well, no, it's not just to stop criminals. It's also a massive program to capture user information from cell phones. It goes way deeper than just stopping criminals. Stopping criminals is the excuse. The real reason is gathering of information from essentially everyone ever who's in, the state of Tennessee. Now, fortunately, it's not legal in the state of Tennessee, but there's always the loophole. If you look in the law, a lot of the time, there's always some loophole where they'll say, except in times of emergency. And they don't necessarily specify what that emergency may be. You can't spy on people's cell phones unless it's an emergency. And they'll not really specify what the emergency is. They'll leave that up to the discretion of the agency or the individual police officer. So the cop will say, he was speeding 50 miles over the speed limit. This is an emergency. I have to spy on his cell phone. You understand where these things can go? If you leave an opening, they're going to get in. It's like the old parable of the camel in the tent, right? Where we talk about, I think it's an old Arabian thing. It would be with camels and tents. But if you look at that, and that really is how it is today, where it used to be the camel was not allowed inside the tent ever. The camel is not allowed out inside this tent at any time. That's the Constitution. And then we'll add a little bit of amendments. So now the camel, he can have his nose inside the tent so he gets some hot air or whatever. And then we'll pass some bills. Now you notice the whole camel's head and neck are inside your tent. And then you pass a few more bills and resolutions and city codes. Now the camel's inside the tent entirely, and you're out in the cold. That's what's happened with American legal justice systems. That's what that's the situation we found ourselves in. And let's be honest with ourselves. It is our fault partially, but it's also the fault of previous generations. We talk about the greatest generation, and they did a lot of great stuff. There's no denying that beating Hitler and the Japanese was a good thing. To recognize that when they got home, they kind of got soft in a lot of ways, because then they start talking about Social Security. And then they start talking about other things that got passed to the 60s that really weren't the best ideas ever. Social Security in the 40s was one of the worst things to ever happen to the country. It really was, because it was actively taking money from you to be redistributed to people without your consent. It was taking money from you. And then they said, well, it's consensual. You can give money or you cannot. But if you're an employer, you're an employee, you're giving money to Social Security whether you like it or not. And it was supposed to be temporary. That's the other thing. It was supposed to be temporary, but you know how that goes. Anything government does, it's never temporary. So there's a lot that can be learned from the ACLU's findings on Google, Facebook, and Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Google's not involved as far as I know, although it probably is. Geophedia, the company that was giving this information to the different police agencies, didn't respond to any requests for comment. But I imagine Geophedia has just lost a lot of business, and I hope it goes bankrupt. I really do. I hope Geophedia goes bankrupt because it's a company which is founded on anti-American ideas. And when I say anti-American, I mean it's against the American people. It's a company which exists for the sole purpose, it seems, of contracting with governments, which is a market which is opened up artificially by governments. It's a market that wouldn't exist unless there was some sort of governmental reason for it to. You see that a lot with, say, as an example, Lockheed. Lockheed makes a lot of great civilian jets, but they also contract a lot of great military jets. And they wouldn't be as big it wouldn't be as big of a company as it is if it weren't for all these government contracts to build giant machines to kill people in some desert somewhere. The Denver Police Lieutenant William Mitchell says, you're able to see a real-time potential threats being made. What? He says, you are able to see real-time potential threats being made to an event, he said. He added that the data feeds helped with the Boston Marathon bombing investigation and aided police in finding a woman who made online threats during the Super Bowl. It has the ability to identify criminal suspects and their actions as they post them to social media, he said. Los Angeles authorities had written in a grant application that as many as 500 police departments nationwide were using Geophedia, which raises the question, is the Chattanooga Police Department one of those police agencies which was using Geophedia? We're going to look into it a little bit, and we'll tell you tomorrow on Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio. We'll let you know our findings on whether or not Chattanooga or any of our local police agencies are using Geophedia in order to spy on you, to spy on Chattanoogans, or perhaps even citizens of Cleveland, Nashville, Knoxville. We'll find out here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, and hotnewstalkradio.com as well. Something that was noted that I thought was kind of interesting, though, was that Geophedia didn't respond for comment, for one, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the other thing is, one police agency, the Denver Police Department, recently signed a $30,000 annual deal with the company, and it said the money came from the agency's confiscation fund. Confiscation fund. Now, that to me sounds a lot like civil asset forfeiture, which is essentially stealing from you at the officer's discretion. It's theft of property, but it's okay because there's a guy with a badge who's doing it and not some guy with a ski mask. That's the only separation between the two people is a ski mask and a badge, but we'll pretend it's okay because it's on behalf of the state. A civil asset forfeiture is one of the biggest crimes to ever happen in the 21st century, and most people ignore it. It's one of the biggest acts of theft. It's the biggest racketeering scheme I've ever seen that continues to exist in the 21st century. It's absolutely crazy what goes on with civil asset forfeiture. This is the idea that a policeman can, if he sees an object and thinks that it may be used in the commission of a crime, he can take that object from you, or say your car. And it's criminal. It really is. It literally is criminal in law, but it happens all the time. You see, you have to understand that no law can contradict the Fourth Amendment. If a law contradicts the Fourth Amendment, it's null and void. The Fourth Amendment sets the guidelines for how the country is to be run. So if you set up a law that says, well, actually, sometimes you can take items without a warrant, then it's a null and void law. It does not compute, to put it in those terms. It doesn't work. But people do it all the time. Any law which violates any constitutional amendment is null and void. Kind of like the Second Amendment, right? Shall not be infringed, which means no state or government entity can infringe upon these particular rights enumerated in the Second Amendment. But they do it all the time. So you see, the real lawbreakers here, 9 times out of 10, are not, they're not you for being pulled over and then having a policeman think that $500 worth of cash sitting in a bag is used for selling drugs. That's not your fault. That's the fault of the state. That's the fault of hundreds, thousands, millions of voters before you who said it was okay for this to happen. Or the voters who said it was okay to elect a police chief who worked to have the city pass these laws, or worked to have state representatives and senators set these laws that made it so your rights were constantly being trod upon. The Fourth Amendment says very clearly, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be voided, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, I'm not seeing any of these policemen or any of these police agencies or sheriff's deputies getting warrants from an attorney, or a judge, I should say, getting warrants from a judge in order to search these Facebook profiles, or in order to search these cell phones which are being taken, or in order to search cell phone records that are being searched by Stingray. So you see, this does affect every American. It's not an issue of, well, these policemen are bad people. It's an issue of the law is bad. They might not even realize they're breaking the law. They might not even realize this is unconstitutional. They swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, but they might not even realize what they're doing is unconstitutional. So it's up to us, it's up to you and me to educate people, to tell them this is illegal. This is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. If you're continuing to operate that knowingly, you are willingly and knowingly violating the Constitution, which you swore to uphold. And a lot of military guys, a lot of policemen are former military too. So that's a double oath right there. They swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when they're in uniform as a military guy. And they swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when they're in uniform as a policeman. So that's 2 times. If you want to violate that twice, well, you stand before God, not the law. You stand before God later on for breaking an oath, because that is what's going to happen. It's an insane thought that we would allow any government entities to operate in this way, but we constantly do it. It seems that every day you see someone who's totally fine with police agencies stealing information from Stingray devices. And Stingray devices, in case you don't know, they act as a go-between. It's sort of a man-in-the-middle attack. What it does is it acts as a cell phone tower. It pretends to be a cell phone tower. And then your cell phone connects to it automatically and sends all the data which it would send to a cell phone tower to this Stingray, which is then collecting that information for later use or possible disposal. That's what the police agencies say. They dispose it, but proven time and again that that's not the case, and that's not true, and it's a lie. And they tend to lie quite often, actually, surprisingly or unsurprisingly, depending on your cynicism. It's interesting, though, how many people you see constantly who are okay with that. They say, well, if it's to stop terrorism, then I guess it's okay. But terrorism is an excuse to get into your wallet. Terrorism is an excuse for the state to violate your privacy, so they have better market control, so they have better control over the populace, so they know all the current trends on social media and otherwise. That's why they do it. It's about market control. It's about controlling the people. If you know everything about the people, it's easy to control them. If you know about all their consumption habits, if you know about all their market habits, it's easy to control someone if you know everything they do. It's easy to control someone if you know what buttons to push to threaten them to make them do what you want. For instance, you threaten a politician's family, he's probably going to pass any bill you want. If you don't vote for this particular bill, your son's going to die in a car accident. That's a threat that very often, I'm sure, gets posed towards different lawmakers. And maybe sometimes it doesn't even need to be. But that's the environment in which we live. And the solution is not national. That's the problem that people have. People say, well, if we just elect Donald Trump, we can fix the problem. If we just elect Hillary Clinton, we can solve the problem, or Jill Stein or Gary Johnson or someone from the Constitution Party, and that's fine, but that's not the solution. The solution is much more local than that. The solution is your sheriff, not the police agencies. The solution is working with local people to find local solutions to local problems, not looking towards people in Washington problems locally, because they have no vested interest in fixing anything here. But people locally do, because they have the people to answer for here at their doorstep. This is Binary here on Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240, hotnewstalkradio.com. Colin Cowherd coming up next.